You've probably heard the name before, right? The Flying Dutchman. For centuries, this terrifying ghost ship has been said to haunt the world's oceans, doomed to sail the seas forever. But is it just a classic sailor's ghost story? Or is there something more to this legend? Let's investigate.
So in this explainer, we're not just going to retell a spooky story. We're going to treat this like a real case file. And you're the jury. We're about to present the evidence for why this mystery has lasted so long, and we're going to challenge those easy explanations. It's up to you to weigh the facts.
All right, so here's the case we're presenting today. The legend of the Flying Dutchman survives, not because it's some supernatural fairy tale, but because the evidence for its existence is it's incredibly compelling. It creates a genuine mystery that, frankly, science struggles to solve completely.
And what's really fascinating here is that this case isn't about arguing against science. Not at all. It's about looking at why the scientific explanations don't quite fit all the facts. The whole strength of this mystery really rests on two main pillars: the unbelievable consistency of the sightings, and, maybe even more importantly, the credibility of the people who reported them.
Okay, let's start with the first piece of evidence for you, the jury, and that is the pattern. I mean, think about it. If these sightings were just random illusions or tall tales, you'd expect them to be all over the map, right? But they're not. The reports are remarkably and kind of spookily consistent. Just look at these details. For over 300 years, witnesses from totally different eras and backgrounds have described the exact same thing. An old Dutch merchant ship with torn sails, it's always near the Cape of Good Hope, and it always appears and then just vanishes without a trace. I mean, that level of consistency is really, really hard to just dismiss as a random hallucination.
But that consistent pattern, that's only half the story. Maybe the most critical part of this whole case is the witnesses themselves. Because a story is only as reliable as the person telling it. And in this case, the key witnesses are far from unreliable.
And this really illustrates the point, doesn't it? We're not talking about a few sailors just spinning yarns in a tavern. We're talking about official logbooks filled with accounts from high-ranking Royal Navy officers. These are men whose entire careers depended on accurate, sober observation. We have reports from educated professionals and even entire families on a beach in broad daylight.
And here is our star witness. Prince George, the man who would later become King George V of England, saw the ship and documented it in his own personal diary. I mean, just think about that for a second. A man destined for the throne, known for his precision and his sense of duty, recorded seeing a ghost ship. That gives an incredible amount of weight to this case.
And there's another, pretty disturbing layer to all this. The ship is often seen as a terrible omen. And for good reason. You have accounts of a sailor falling to his death just hours after a sighting, or entire ships sinking in perfectly calm seas days later. A trail of tragedy just seems to follow an encounter with this thing. Is it a coincidence? Maybe. But the recurring pattern is unsettling, to say the least.
Now, every case has a defense, right? And the defense here is science. Skeptics have come up with several pretty rational explanations for these sightings. But, as we're about to see, each of these explanations leaves quite a bit of room for some significant, reasonable doubt. So first up is something called a fata morgana. It's a really complex mirage that can make ships that are way below the horizon look like they're floating in the air. It's a real phenomenon for sure, but it usually distorts the image. It doesn't typically create a consistent, super detailed image of a 17th century ship. Okay, next theory, bioluminescence. That eerie glow you can see in the ocean at night? It's caused by tiny marine life. Some people believe this could create the illusion of a glowing, ghostly ship. And that's plausible for a strange light, maybe. But it really doesn't explain a clearly defined vessel with sails and masts being seen in broad daylight.
And finally, there's this idea of surfacing shipwrecks. The theory goes that decomposition gases could build up inside a sunken wooden hull, lifting the whole thing to the surface for just a moment before it sinks again. It's an interesting idea, but there's no confirmed instance of this ever actually happening with a large ship like this.
And that right there brings us to the crucial point. While each of these scientific theories might explain a piece of the puzzle, none of them really seems to account for the whole picture. How do any of these theories explain over 60 credible witnesses, including a future king, all seeing the exact same historical vessel, often in perfectly clear weather?
So we've reviewed the evidence, we've got the consistent details stretching over centuries, the incredible credibility of the witnesses, and that unsettling pattern of tragedy. And we've also examined the defense, the scientific theories that try their best but seem to fall just a little bit short of a complete explanation.
And this really is why the legend endures. The Flying Dutchman isn't terrifying because it's definitely a ghost. It's terrifying because it sits in that weird, uncomfortable gray area where our understanding just fails. It's a place where all the rational theories almost fit, but not quite, leaving just enough room for the impossible to creep in. So now, the case rests with you, the jury. Is this whole thing just a collection of mirages, coincidences, and tall tales? Or does the weight of the evidence, the consistency, the credibility, the pattern, point to a genuine mystery that just defies the simple answer? The choice is yours.